Welcome back to the History Show on Uxbridge FM, and we're very pleased to welcome back Ken Pearce, local historian, who has another story for us. This time, we're going to hear about the Hillingdon Fair. Good morning, Ken.
Good morning. Many of you will remember Hillingdon Fair, I'm sure. It took place over a few days in May every year and was located on Coney Green in the area next to the parish church. Sadly, the last fair was held over 20 years ago, so we must recall surely something of the story before it's all forgotten, and particularly because it began in the 14th century. At that time, the church in this country was much concerned with the life after death. After all, existence in those days was often hard and short. And so the thought of moving into a new life of eternal peace and bliss was particularly appealing. So prayers for the dead were part of everyday worship, and the belief being that those prayers could ease the journey of the soul through the next life. This gave rise to the creation of what were called chantries, a kind of religious endowment. So, in their last will and testament, a person would leave a sum of money to ensure that prayers were said daily to smooth their passage through the afterlife. On his death in 1370, Walter Rabb, owner of land in Hillingdon parish, expressed a desire that masses should be said daily in the church of Hillingdon for my pure soul, and for the souls of my ancestors and heirs, and all faithful dead forever. At that time, only the king could agree to a creation of a chantry. So King Edward III set up a committee to determine whether it was a viable project. 3 men, John Newman, John Barnes, and John Tull, came to Hillingdon to assess the situation. They discovered that Walter Rabb had left a house and 16 acres of land valued at 57 shillings and fourpence. They recommended the creation of a chantry. The king therefore gave his approval, and the news reached the village on the 16th of May 1372. And the villagers were so delighted that they hastily organised a celebration. And that was the first Hillingdon Fair, 648 years ago. The documents, by the way, recording this are in the Guildhall Library in London. When a man named John Charlton died soon afterwards, the records state that he was buried, quote, in the chapel recently constructed. So we know that a chantry chapel was built, that it was dedicated to the Blessed Virgin Mary, and that a priest was paid to say Mass daily for the soul of Walter Rabb and all the faithful departed of Hillingdon. The villagers continued to celebrate the creation of the chantry every year on the 16th of May. And this continued right up until the time of the Reformation and King Henry VIII. The names of some of the chantry priests are recorded. Now, it is well known that Henry, following his break with Rome, dissolved the monasteries, but he also abolished the chantries as well. And any money left, was confiscated by the crown. In Hillingdon, the chantry chapel remained, but there's no trace of it now because it was demolished when St. John's Church was altered and enlarged about 1850. But Hillingdon Fair continued as a small village event every May. The earliest account I've discovered is a record of what happened in 1830. Apparently, activities included climbing a greasy pole, dipping one's head into water to pick up oranges, dipping one's head into flour to find coins. And there was also a competition in which bread rolls covered in treacle were hung on strings hanging from a bar, and competitors, with their hands behind their backs, attempted to eat a roll as it swung freely. A prize went to the person who consumed the roll in the fastest time. 1830 was also the last year in which badger baiting took place as part of the fair. The animal was killed by a dog belonging to a prominent local man, and it's a reminder that some rural sports in this country in the past were undeniably cruel. The character of the village fair changed sometime in the mid-19th century with the arrival of the fairground people. Roundabouts, swing boats, coconut shies, and other amusements appeared each May. Attendances grew. The fair was noisier and rowdier. In fact, in 1882, a letter to the local paper claimed that the fair was an unmitigated nuisance, and once a year is once too often. By 1900, the fair had grown in size, and so part of it was moved down to a field halfway down Hillingdon Hill. But the problem became more acute because as the traffic grew, including electric trams, the main road became more and more congested. Coney Green had always been privately owned, but in 1925 it became council property and was designated as a public recreation ground. So Hillingdon Fair moved in there, although, of course, the council required a fee for the hire of the land. In 1931, it became a two-day event, and after World War II, it was extended to 3 or 4 days. But by the 1990s, the fairground people were complaining that the council's fees were making it not worthwhile their attending. Also, a run of bad weather hit attendances. So, sad to say, the fair was last held in 1998. Today, a close of houses built in the 1960s is called the Chantry. The past is not completely forgotten.
Thank you very much, Ken. Perhaps we should relaunch the Hillingdon Fair and have bread roll eating and coins, and not sure about badger baiting these days, though. Wouldn't go down so well, perhaps. Okay, it's great to talk to you again, and we've got one more to come. Stay tuned.